In the heart of equatorial Africa, there is a vast region that remains unexplored. The first explorers to penetrate the area spoke of marvelous creatures. They said they had encountered giants that were half man, half ape. Dwarf elephants with golden hides. Dangerous hair-covered men. Hybrid beasts and tiny humans that could make themselves invisible deep within the jungle. Even today, some talk of an incredible being that has survived in the heart of this unexplored territory since the Mesozoic era. Here, everything seems possible. As the last bastion of virgin territory, the Congo River Basin continues to guard its secrets, resisting the unstoppable spread of human beings. And in its interior, many extraordinary species continue to find protection and refuge, making themselves invisible to man and breathing life into the most mysterious jungle on Earth. Since its discovery, 10 years before the American continent, the Congo River has been a constant source of surprises. It tricked the most expert explorers who thought it was the Nile and the Niger because they couldn't imagine that this was the only river in the world that turns back on itself and crosses the equator twice. The Congo River drains into an area of impenetrable rainforest, measuring 3,700,000 square kilometers, a gigantic basin that covers 1/10 of the African continent. Today, 5 centuries after it was discovered, technology allows us to observe the jungle from space. But not even the most precise satellite can see through the thick canopy of trees that cover the Congo River Basin. It is here, below the treetops, that legends are born. From within, the rainforest seems deserted. The animals can smell, hear, and see you long before you detect them. That's why the jungle seems to be empty. But it's not only teeming with life, it is concealing some of the world's largest mammals. Eastern lowland gorillas. For someone who has never experienced this, meeting a gorilla in the heart of the jungle is something like meeting a ferocious-looking giant. The first Westerners to see a gorilla were most probably a group of explorers under Hannon, a Carthaginian commander in about 525 BC. In the jungle interior, they said they had encountered wild men with hairy heads. The Carthaginians followed the strange men and caught 3 of their women. In their chronicles, they wrote, "They bit and scratched our chiefs and refused to follow us, so we had to kill them. We skinned them and carried their hides back to Carthage." They called those belligerent women the Scratchers, which in Carthaginian sounds something like gorilla. And the myth of the ferocious gorilla was born. From that time and up until the 20th century, gorillas were considered to be terrible beasts. In the 19th century, journalists like Paul de Chaillu brought fame to these incredibly cruel, murderous creatures. The lies won out over natural history treatises, and overnight, the gorilla became a jungle-dwelling man-beast, an animal from which nothing but a terrible death could be expected. Luckily, science entered the game. And the world saw gorillas for what they are, peaceful giants. Inside Ndoki, in the heart of the Republic of the Congo, 2 little gorillas play with their mother. At a distance, the male silverback is resting. The mother joins the game. Like all animals with a highly developed intellect, gorillas require years of learning, during which the mother's presence is essential. For the young gorillas, the formidable jungle is a place full of diversion, where danger is non-existent. This is one of the advantages of having King Kong as your father. Like all mothers on Earth, mommy gorilla needs to take a break from the game. At her age, she has her limits. But like all children, the little gorillas are happier when their parents are playing too. And the mother's rest doesn't last long. There is a point when not even King Kong can put up with such an uproar. Daddy gorilla is out of there. Once again, 2 small Davids have gotten the better of an enormous Goliath. No one is quite sure how many eastern lowland gorillas live in the rainforests of the Congo. The difficulty posed by reaching its interior, the low visibility and the timidity of this great ape made it virtually invisible, feeding the myth of the jungle-dwelling man-beast. Until in 1992, when it was discovered that the jungle opens periodically in small clearings where animals allow themselves to be seen. These clearings are called bai. In the bai, salty water keeps the large trees from growing any taller. Salt is quite scarce in the jungle interior, and many animals come out into the Bai in search of the mineral. Most of these animals are invisible in the heart of the jungle, so it was virtually impossible to observe them until these clearings were discovered. It was then that many legends began to find an explanation. Jungle elephants are the largest of the Congo's spirits. Many hunters talked for centuries about their existence, bringing back ivory as proof. They said that in the jungle interior there were two different species of elephant, and that neither one was like the African bush elephant. One of them is this one, the African forest elephant. The other one, the African pygmy elephant, continues to walk the line between what is real and what is imaginary. For years, it was said that inside these rainforests were elephants that were shorter than 1.5 meters tall. Some of these were even taken to zoos in the United States and in Europe at the beginning of the last century. But scientists were not convinced. African pygmy elephants were the size of a red buffalo, and a full-grown male was even shorter than a young female forest elephant. In 1990, the German ambassador to the Congo was able to photograph a herd of pygmy elephants. But this wasn't proof enough for the scientific community, and the pygmy elephant continues to be a ghost in the jungles of the Congo. But a different legend would be clarified in the Bai. In the late 19th century, the accounts of several explorers and hunters told of golden elephants. It was always believed that this was a figment of their imagination or some kind of hallucination brought on by fever, until the golden elephants came out into the light. In the Bai, elephants search for the salt, calcium, and magnesium that is hidden in the soil. In the waterlogged areas, the pachyderms bore into the ground with their trunks and absorb the salts dissolved in the water. But mud in the Bai is useful in other ways too. This is where the golden elephants come in. The mud protects the elephant's sensitive skin from the rays of the sun and from jungle parasites. It also turns them into a traveling museum of contemporary art. Later, when the elephants return to the rainforest, the mud slowly flakes off, and the golden elephants disperse as well. Like so many others, the legends of the golden and pygmy elephants make us think about how all of the creatures mentioned by explorers, travelers, and hunters which remain unknown to science must be imaginary. But that isn't necessarily true. In 1876, Pygmies spoke to Stanley of an animal they called Ati. Stanley recorded this in his writings, naming the animal the jungle ass. Another Congo legend had just been born, and once again, no one believed it. But in 1900, Sir Harry Johnston, governor of Uganda, found enough remains to carry out sketches. When he began to put the pieces together, an animal appeared that was a mixture of giraffe and zebra, with budding horns, stripes on its flanks, and an extremely long black tongue. It seemed like an impossible fantasy. In spite of everything, Johnston's ongoing search finally bore fruit, and in 1901, supported by evidence that included remains, cadavers, and photos, science classified the impossible Ati of the Pygmies as the Okapia johnstoni, the okapi. Not long afterward, it was James Chapin, who was participating in an expedition in search of okapis in the Congo, who plucked several unidentified feathers from the hair of a pygmy. The pygmy told him that they were from a bird his people called mbulu. Judging by the description, Chapin supposed it was an unknown turkey. And once again, no one believed it. In Africa, there were no turkeys or pheasants. It took Chapin years to discover what bird the feathers had come from, while specialists ignored his thesis. But the bird finally appeared. The scientific community had to admit that it had been mistaken, and they finally recognized the Congo peafowl. No one knows how many secrets are still being guarded in the jungles of the Congo. But all those who have sought out or researched the animals of the interior have needed the help of a people that make up the fabric of the jungle, the Pygmies. Nobody is as familiar with the Congo interior as these tiny jungle men. For them, the many animals the scientific community looks for, demystifies, or discovers in the rainforest are part of their daily life. That's why they are an essential source of help for finding any possible new species. But back when exploration was taking off, these tiny jungle men provoked more than one extravagant mess. In the age of Hannan and his Carthaginians, the small men of the rainforest were already being talked about. In the earliest chronicles, they were described in different ways. Some said they were like other indigenous peoples, but on a smaller scale. But others painted them as being tiny, hairy, clever, and evil. There were others who described them as hairy, but friendly and peaceful. Were these descriptions of the Pygmies wrong? Or were there other kinds of small, hairy men in the rainforest? In the rainforest, most activity takes place here, in the treetops. Here there is light, and so there are flowers, there is fruit, there is life. And it is here, in the earliest hours of the day, where we find some of the first tiny, hairy, intelligent men ever written about. Chimpanzees. Unlike gorillas, chimpanzees are omnivorous. In the morning, they climb up to the forest canopy in search of succulent fruits. They're crazy about figs and tear into them like gluttons. When the equatorial sun begins to warm up their dark bodies, the chimps climb back down to the cool, dense forest. This is where they spend the midday hours, the hottest, most oppressive part of the day, resting and strengthening their family ties. It's easy to understand how the first Westerners to enter this jungle confused them with human beings. The chimps confused the first explorers because of the way they looked, and because their intelligence left them perplexed. It was no wonder. Not only are we up to 98% genetically compatible, but like us, chimps are able to create tools that make their lives easier. They cut open fruit with rocks, sharpen sticks to hunt small rodents, and spit on stalks of grass so that termites and ants will stick to them. An appetizer that is accessible to them only because of their intelligence. The chimpanzee's intelligence has resulted in complex social structures in each group of animals. The chimps help each other out, raising orphans, assisting elderly members. So why are there chronicles that speak of hairy men that are aggressive and violent? All we have to do is look at our own species in order to understand that intelligence is a double-edged sword. A group of chimps has decided to invade a neighboring territory. A chimpanzee from the local group crosses their path alone. And the invaders attack. Among the chimps, so able to feel compassion, generosity, and respect, there are also cases of abduction, rape, and cannibalism. A determining factor in the chimps' behavior is their diet. Most great apes are vegetarians. But humans and chimpanzees also need meat in their diet. The hunters in the group get to work. Fruit is not enough. Now they are on the trail of meat, and small jungle monkeys are easy prey. Their intelligence and group structure help them organize the hunt. Each one takes up his post, and they close in on the prey and attack. The hunters divide up the spoils according to social position. It seems evident that the aggressive, hairy men written about by the first explorers were chimpanzees. But who or what were the timid and peaceful hairy men about whom they also wrote? In 1928, when it was believed that all the great apes had been discovered, the specimens in a Belgian museum led to the discovery of another spirit from these impenetrable rainforests. These are bonobos, also known as dwarf chimpanzees. Unlike chimps, bonobos base their social structure in matriarchy. Perhaps for this reason, or because they're mainly plant eaters, the violence found in their cousins is non-existent in their society. Their peaceful nature, smaller size, and lesser strength could spell danger for the bonobos if they had to face a group of chimpanzees. But the Congo River keeps each group on a separate bank. Bonobos live in the jungles just south of the Great River. The chimps live to the north, and the Congo River is too powerful to cross. Even more so when you consider that neither of these species knows how to swim. These are most likely the peaceful, hairy little men written about by the first explorers. They spend the day looking for fruit and playing. Unlike chimps, there are no fights with rival groups, no abductions, no rapes or murders. What is the bonobo's secret? Why this absence of violent episodes? The peaceful nature of the bonobos is due to their matriarchal social structure and to a tie that unites the group like no other, the constant practice of sex. The real men of the jungle, the pygmies, learned from the chimpanzees and bonobos where and how to find food. For hundreds of years, the Baaka and Bayaka have observed the rainforest, learning from its creatures and making the most of its resources, which are available to all those who know how to look for them. No one is as familiar with the Congo River basin as they are. And like great experts on its shady interior, they live, hunt, and eat most of the animals that populate the region. To put it simply, there is no one who knows more about the fauna in the Congo. All of the animals known to science in this jungle have their own name in the pygmy language, but there is one that has still not been recognized by scientists, one which is known to the pygmies as Mokele Mbembe. For 5 centuries, legend has spoken of a group of dinosaurs living in the interior of the Congo, survivors of the Cretaceous extinction. The first chronicles date from the 16th century, and the first drawing is from 1776. On February 13, 1910, the New York Herald ran a cover story on the subject. Starting then, expeditions from America, Japan, Germany, and Great Britain set out to find the dinosaurs. But to date, no foreigner has managed to spot the Mokele Mbembe. For the pygmies, the Mokele Mbembe is just another jungle animal. 2 years ago, a Spanish team showed them images of different animals, asking what they are called in the Bayaka language. They recognized and named gorillas, chimpanzees, elephants. When dinosaurs like the supposed Mokele Mbembe were shown, the pygmies said they weren't familiar with these animals, that they had never seen them. And then they were shown pictures of rhinoceroses. Is the Mokele Mbembe a rhinoceros? Of the 5 known species of rhino, 3 live in the heart of the rainforest. They're quite fond of bathing in the water. In Africa, however, the 2 known species live on the savanna. The white rhino and the black rhino graze and nibble branches in open, grass-covered areas. Could it be possible that another species of rhinoceros lives on the African continent, hidden in the interior of the Congo River basin? The Congo River basin jealously guards the anonymity of its spirits. For the scientific community, there is no doubt that there are still hundreds of species to be discovered in this lush and impenetrable world. What they aren't so sure about is whether there is time to discover them, because the barrier that once made the Congo's animals invulnerable is giving way. Every year, 10 million cubic meters of timber are removed from the African rainforests. Asia, where the timber industry first developed, is so decimated that it is hardly profitable anymore. Now it has set its sights on Central Africa, the second largest green lung on Earth. The problem is not only the felling of the trees and the destruction of the surrounding area. In order to reach the best trees, the timber companies create paths to a world that has been isolated and untouched until now. And it is these paths that are bleeding the rainforest. A jungle in silence. Other than insects, there are no animals here. The paths create access for commerce that runs parallel to the timber industry. The trafficking of bushmeat is growing year by year, resulting in an absence of jungle animals near the paths. Despite bans, trade in bushmeat is growing. Today, 30 million inhabitants in the Congo River basin buy and consume between 3 and 5 million metric tons of meat from wild animals. And consumption usually begins along the paths created by the timber industry. One study has shown that villages which are not located near timber camps consume between 1/2 and 1/3 the amount of bushmeat that is consumed in those villages that are near the camps. For locals, who are poor and without resources, hunting is an irresistible temptation. And when you consider the absolute lack of resources among the majority of people, it is large mammals, the most fragile and endangered animals in the rainforest, that are most highly valued. With the cartridge costing 500 Cameroon francs, some 76 euro cents, a hunter can earn 1,000 francs for killing a small antelope. If he kills a gorilla, the price can rise to as much as 35,000 francs. And this is just the tip of the iceberg for the greatest treasure in the Congo interior: ivory. African forest elephants have the highest quality ivory of all the world's species. Once again, China and Southeast Asia become markets that are deaf to international bans. And poachers bet their lives and a lifetime in prison in order to earn quantities of money that, under other circumstances, would be out of reach. While the barriers from the outside world weaken, inside Mbelebai, a family of gorillas goes out in search of one of the jungle's scarce goods. The secret of the riches of the Bai, the thing that attracts animals and lures them from the dark interior of the rainforest, is hidden beneath the water and in the grasses. The water that soaks the subsoil and runs along the surface of the Bai is full of the salts and minerals that are so scarce in the thick jungle. Elephants extract them by drilling into the soil with their trunks. But gorillas don't go about it in quite such a dramatic way. The plants of the Bai are full of the same salts. For hours, under the watchful eye of a silverback male, the family feeds peacefully. Until the discovery of the Bai in 1992, almost nothing was known about the behavior of eastern lowland gorillas. While scientists had been studying mountain gorillas for decades, the lowland species remained truly unknown. The rainforest made it quite difficult to reach these families and observe them. But in the Bai, the gorillas came out into the light. One of the first things to be observed was that gorillas washed their food carefully before putting it in their mouths. For a baby gorilla, the Bai is a place that is full of learning opportunities. The babies see adults eating plants and grasses with such delight that they are eager to try the food themselves. But this is quite difficult to do from their mothers' backs, and getting down on the ground is very dangerous. Straying from a mother's protection in the jungle interior is a deadly risk, because every shadow could be concealing an enemy. But here in the open, Mommy and Daddy gorilla have extraordinary vision. Daddy seems relaxed, so he waits for the right moment and climbs down. Once again, he's lucky to have Daddy nearby, especially when his daddy is 200 kilos of solid muscle. The ground is cool and fun for a baby gorilla. At last, the future silverback carries out his first feat. All by himself, he has gotten a water hyacinth, and in the safety and comfort of his mother's back, he savors the trophy. In spite of the strength of the large silverback males, gorillas also have natural enemies in the rainforest interior. They are another kind of Congo spirit. They remain invisible. It's impossible to know when they're nearby. And they are much more dangerous than any other creature in the jungle. This is the Ebola virus, the most deadly organism on Earth. When the Ebola virus spreads to a human population, it can kill up to 90% of those infected. And gorillas are even more vulnerable. It is thought that the virus has killed 25% of the world's gorillas. And poachers who enter the jungle along paths created by the timber industry transmit the sickness to human populations through the meat of the great apes. The virus appears, infects 100% of those who come into contact with it, kills up to 90% of those who are infected, and disappears. In an attempt to eradicate it, scientists have been asking themselves the same question for 2 decades. Where does the virus hide while it's inactive? This is Kittim Cave, on the border between Uganda and Kenya. Two people caught the Ebola virus inside the cave, providing a clue about its hiding place. Because those who guard the virus's secret live inside this cave. Bats. Scientists now know that some species of fruit bats are home to the most dangerous of all the Congo's spirits. The virus doesn't affect them, but they are the messengers of death. As night falls, the bats fly over the rainforest in search of fruit. And on their nightly outings, they leave droppings full of the virus on the leaves. Later, the gorillas eat these leaves, and the Ebola virus reappears. This is the Congo rainforest. Closed off, impenetrable, full of spirits that don't like to be seen, full of creatures that blur the line between myth and reality. There are those who hold that the terrible illnesses in the Congo that affect human beings are the last line of defense for its spirits. this is just a response to the external aggressions that are trying to do away with the rainforest. Whether myth or reality, the Congo River Basin is a world that is ending. If the irrational extraction of timber, minerals, and soil continues, the jungles of the Congo will disappear forever. And with them, its marvelous unknown spirits.